Welcome everyone. My name is Janice Brown. I'm a graduate student at Southern University, and today I'm sharing with you my capstone research, which explores the impact of revitalizing school-wide positive behavior intervention and supports, restorative practices, and wraparound services in the East Baton Rouge Parish high schools. Challenges in majority, minority, low academic performing East Baton Rouge Parish high schools. These schools have high rates of discipline referrals and suspensions. We have a problem with chronic absenteeism and academic underperformances. We have inconsistent PBIS implementation since COVID, and we have a decline in school morale and limited family engagement. This research seeks to answer how these frameworks work together, their challenges, and what's needed for sustainability. The three research questions that I investigated with my research was the impact on behavior, academics, and engagement, the role of incentives and fidelity, as well as staff perceptions of implementation. Why school-wide PBIS and wraparound services? It is proven that these systems work. However, it's not working for schools like Bel Air Magnet High School and other low socioeconomic schools, underperforming schools, because of lack of fidelity, lack of sustainability, and lack of buy-in from administration and staff. However, an integrated model supports the whole child behaviorally, academically, socially, and emotionally. And that's why I'm advocating for all three of these services to be revitalized in the public school systems. Bel Air High School is a case study. I've worked there for the past 12 years, so that is my whole school, and I'm using a lot of their data. I also looked at other schools with similar demographics as Bel Air and looked at their scores, the problems that they have, and found that they have a lot in common. The data, the numbers, the percentages are maybe a little more than 5 to 8% difference in the numbers. In Bel Air High School case, we've had a massive decline in enrollment. We went from around 1,300 in 2014 to in 2020, the enrollment was 721, and currently the enrollment is at 651. Also, at Bel Air Magnet High School, our ACT average was 13.9 versus the state average of 18.8. Our graduation rate this past school year was 56.9, which is a dramatic decline, versus a state graduation rate of 83.2%. Another big problem that Bel Air and schools similar to Bel Air faces is chronic absenteeism. For the last 4.5 years, over 50% of the students that attend Bel Air Magnet High School have an absenteeism problem. Bel Air's data clearly reflects broader district trends, and therefore there is definitely a need for revitalization, and it is an urgent need if we're going to improve academic performance. The literature review. Research supports the model, but without fidelity and cultural responsiveness, effectiveness is diminished. And if you notice here on the literature review, it has my sources, and it tells you that based on their research, that they know that these services will work if implemented with fidelity. The research shows that wraparound services, when integrated with PBIS, addresses mental health, family issues, and academic needs. It improves behavior as well as academic success. The school climate is improved, which is linked to better attendance, fewer dropouts, and an improved behavior with our students. The research also states that PBIS is not a standalone solution. That's been proven year after year. Additional academic supports and equitable restorative practices are needed for school-wide impact. Also, teachers need to use PBIS with fidelity. We've learned that when teachers utilize PBIS, It enhances their classroom management. It reduces discipline issues, and it improves the teacher-student relationships. Analyzing the data. If you look at the data, Bel Air is represented by the blue bar, the district bar is red, and the state bar is green. If you notice, there's been a very little growth in our ACT performance from 2020 to this current school year. In 2020, Bel Air was at 14.7. The next 2 years, the ACT scores declined. It went back up slightly, 2023, and this last school year it ended up being at 14.7. However, the state average is 18.2, so there's a drop of about a 4-point difference in the EBR Bel Air High School average and the state average. And it's worth noting that for the school performance score, that when these students take the ACT, we need them to make an 18 or higher in order to positively impact their school performance score, and we're not there yet. There's also a disparity in graduation rates. Again, if you look over here to my right, the bar graph, Bel Air is in blue, the district's in red, and in green is our state. You'll notice in 2020, our graduation rate was at 65.6%, and it has decreased to 56.9 this past school year. So that is a huge deduction in the amount of students that we are graduating. Again, this also shows us there is a great urgent need to revitalize SWPBIS restorative justice practices and wraparound services. Our LEAP scores. These LEAP scores represents the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory. The amount of unsatisfactory students is much higher than the students who are making basic or mastery on these testing subjects. And it's interesting to note that in biology, there was a 59% unsatisfactory rate in 2020. We have shown some growth there. Now the rate is at 43%. In English, we saw some improvement in English 1 from 52% to 44%. However, our math and our history, U.S. history rates remain high. Over 60% of those students are still at an unsatisfactory rate, and that's totally unacceptable. So our LEAP scores remain below district and state levels. Achievement gaps with the EBR district persist, signaling a need for stronger academic intervention. Again, I mentioned earlier that we have chronic absenteeism. Why is that? Well, our students are dealing with a lot of issues that are some things that they just cannot control. For example, most of our students come from low-income families. Our students, 98% of our students live in poverty. They have transportation issues. They have health issues. They have a lot of family challenges. A lot of our students are raising or have to take care of their siblings. So this persistent absenteeism undermines programs like SWPBIS, and it worsens our achievement gap. Again, another reason why we must put these interventions in place to improve attendance and equity. As I stated in a prior slide, our absenteeism rate is peaking at 56.9%. Also, we have a huge problem with discipline. Our in-school suspension rate is now at 36.6%. Alternative site suspension has rose from 0.2 to over 30%, which reflects a high relevance on punitive discipline. These trends raise concerns about the effectiveness of our current behavior strategies, again suggesting that restorative justice, wraparound services, PBIS needs to be revitalized and implemented with fidelity. PBIS visibility and staff perception. In randomly polling various high school students as well as some faculty and staff that I came across at various events, I found that very few students were aware of what PBI stood for. They kind of vaguely remembered it being in place in their middle school or elementary school, but since COVID, they've really not have been aware that PBI still existed at their high schools. Staff members also reported that they rarely do anything with PBIS. They may have a program or two a calendar year, and they'll put it under framework of PBIS, but again, inconsistent use, very little communication about PBIS. So even though these programs exist, students and teachers are not constantly engaged with them, which limits their effectiveness. My recommendations to solve these problems: we need to strengthen the fidelity of the school-wide PBIS program. How do we do that? We assign coaches or lead teachers to monitor implementation with fidelity, and we look at all classrooms. We ensure that best practices are embedded in our daily routine. We also should have regular training for our faculty and staff on the PBIS strategies, expectations. We need some type of data tracking system to know that the things that we put in place, is it working, is it not working, do we need to make adjustments? Those type of questions need to be answered, and it needs to be tracked regularly. Another recommendation, we need to integrate academic and behavior interventions. As stated earlier, these systems do not work well if they're working by themselves in silos. So we need to create a multi-tiered support system that combines school-wide PBIS with academic support, such as tutoring, mentorship, remediation, and test preparation. We also need to monitor the students' behavior and make certain that our interventions are appropriate for whatever problem or situation that we're trying to put it in place for. We need to make certain that we have something in place to deal with our chronically absent and our at-risk kids, and that all our practices and all our students, regardless of their subgroup, are dealt with fairly and equitably. Another recommendation, we have to get our families involved. If we want to see success and we want to see growth and we want to eliminate discipline problems and create a positive environment, we have to get our parents involved. We have to, with fidelity, have these family nights out. We need to have community forums. We may have to put in some type of incentives to attract our students and our parents to participate in some of these culturally enriched initiatives that we come up with. We need to get our students involved. We need to give them a sense of empowerment, ownership of these programs. We need their buy-in. We need to hear their voice. We need to know what will it take to get them, at the next level. And most importantly, we have to use our data to improve, to have continuous improvement. We know we have data on discipline, we have data on attendance, but we don't use it with fidelity. We underutilize it. We have it presented to us in our professional learning communities, but nothing is done. It's not used to set up for restorative justice practices. It's not used to close achievement gaps like it should be. So we must use the data to adjust intervention in real time and not be reactive all the time, but be proactive and ensure that equity in all of our applications across all subgroups of students. And the final takeaways are the school-wide PBIS and wraparound services. It does promote positive school change. The literature, tons of literature out there that supports that it does work, but it's only effective when implemented consistently and equitably. We have to have collaborations with our stakeholders, with our leaders. We have to have management, our principals, the school leaders buy into this. Our stakeholders, the staff, the students, the faculty. We also have to invest in PBIS. We have to make it attractive. We have to find out from our students what's attractive to them, what will make them want to do better or be a part of this. So ultimately, these strategies can only succeed if everyone, from administration to families, is committed to building inclusive, responsible school environments. And in conclusion, I'm repeating myself, these solutions, when implemented consistently and with strong leadership support, they will and they can help close achievement gaps. They will improve school climate, and they will better support the needs of all of our students. Thank you. I have in my appendix the survey for the students on PBIS. I also have the data collection instrument to get the input from my teachers' perspectives on PBIS and wraparound services, as well as school climate. And I have the list of the references that I used for my research. Thank you.